Thank you. Thank you all for your interest in our work in improving nonprofit processes. Rob, Fran, and I are with Boise State's Process Management Lab, and we're just so excited to be here and look forward to our conversation today. We have a three-part agenda. We want to spend a little time describing different approaches for streamlining processes. So we'll talk a little bit about what our process management does, our lab does. We'll talk a little bit about broad approaches for streamlining processes and our approaches. And then we'll describe, after our approach, we'll spend most of our time identifying internal challenges that process improvement efforts can address. And we'll take you through our hands-on demonstration regarding one of your own processes. And before we get started, it would help us to learn a little more about you. Could you please provide the following information in your Zoom chat window? Your name, organization, and letting us know if you're a nonprofit, for-profit, or something else. Oh.
We'll give you a minute to do that.
And Kai with Idaho Partners for Good, a nonprofit, Blossom. Harley with Mobility Facility, Inc., a not-for-profit. Is it Loke? And your organization?
It's called Napua Noel. Sorry.
And a nonprofit.
It's called Napua Noel.
Oh. And the Idaho Veterans Chamber of Commerce, a nonprofit. Anybody else? Thank you. Rob?
Okay, well, I'll get going, but I have to ask this question. Kimbra, do you happen to know somebody by the name of Kimber Shaw?
So no, I don't, but that's interesting. Do you?
Yeah, I do. She's a good friend at the university. So,
oh, very cool.
I was just thinking, wow, that's just so close. Well, okay, everybody. So what we're here for, we're called the Process Management Lab. And this lab kind of grew out of our desire to use our expertise of a number of years in the consulting world, in the higher ed world, in the training world, as well as in the facilitation world. To use that expertise to help nonprofits and small businesses better serve the community. And so we assumed that if we could help your organization strengthen its internal capacity, its working policies and skills and procedures and practices, etc., then you could improve your external performance, and that would positively impact our communities. So we kind of took an indirect route toward how can we help our community by seeing if we could help the nonprofits better serve the community. And so now this is a really busy slide, and I'm going to bring it back later to kind of talk more about some of the points here. But I just wanted to kind of talk about the mission and make a few points there. So I just mentioned providing capacity and helping to build services for nonprofit organizations that involve some process improvement, redesign, and implementation of those improvements. And that's really the core of our work. Although with our range of expertise that we have amongst the three of us, as well as we expand out to a number of other faculty and other consultants that we are part of our larger network, we have really quite a range of services that we can help provide to nonprofits to help build capacity. But really the core of what we've been doing so far is really on the process improvement redesign. So that's one of the key points of our mission. A second point here is to help students and graduates. As I say, Steve and I have 30 years in the professorial business, but help students and graduates build their own capacity in the way of consulting and process improvement skills. And all three of us have worked to develop new talent throughout our careers. Fran is actually from the commercial side as a directing information technology efforts of various corporations in the Valley. So we've all been developing new talent, but that's a second thing that has been very important to us. As we eventually will move out of the service provider capacity, we want to leave as many other students as we can and graduates with some of those facilitation and development skills that we've come across. So we're trying to develop new capacity in new talent, and finally, to do the above in an affordable manner. And so what we've done with our business model is to basically, we charge extremely low rates to nonprofits for the process improvement work that we do and the other work. And we use that to provide honoraria to the students and to make sure that we can cover or defray our costs. So that's kind of what our business model looks like. And Steve?
So all this stuff about process kind of begs the question, yeah, so what's a process? Here's our definition. It's a collection of interdependent work tasks. And so they're different tasks, and the task A influences the completion of task B and task C and so on. Process typically involve multiple entities. And so they cut across departments, they cut across different people in the organizations. They're initiated by an event. Something starts them off and they end as well. Typically they achieve some sort of result for a customer. That customer may be external to the organization or internal to the organization. And the process affects people called stakeholders who have a say in this, determining whether that process is meeting needs and being successful. And why are processes important? Well, because oftentimes they are undefined or silos. And this happens in nonprofit organizations, but it also happens in not-for-profit, for-profit, government organizations, military, all sorts of organizations. Those processes are undefined because they kind of evolved over time. And even if they're defined, they can end up being really siloed. And yes, I do mean silos, and you can see them here. This is depiction of how a food bank distributes food. And there's a silo for purchasing. They get the donated goods, based on government program allocations. They're the folks who actually use the purchasing funds to procure their operations, and then there's distribution. And what happens in these silos is these are typically different departments. And so stuff happens within one of these departments, one of the silos. And if there's an issue that affects somebody else, the issue has to travel up the silo and across to another silo and then down into the other silo. And if there's feedback, it has to travel back up, across, and back to the initial silo. It's a way to run departments, but it's not necessarily a good way to fix problems associated with processes. Those silos can be hard, and remember, processes tend to cut across multiple entities. We've been working with the Idaho Food Bank for the last couple of years to improve what we're calling the food flow process. And that process cuts across all of those silos for the purpose of providing food to neighbors. So this is process 101.
There, as we started looking at how we were going to approach these, there are really three kind of big picture process change methodologies. Business process automation, that's the one near and dear to my heart in the IT world. If you can automate it, you can do it faster, you can do it more predictively, you get a better quality output, generally more efficient. I used to warn people in IT, you can also break things a lot faster. If you automate the wrong thing, it's not good. Business process improvement, or BPI. That's the one really that we in the group focus on. That is, at least in the nonprofit world, the more logical place to start. You're starting with medium-sized changes, with important business processes, but you're not trying to solve the ills of the world. Business process reengineering, I've been through a few of those. They're typically huge, they're radical, they really tend to tip staff over. They're big changes. And if they're done well, you end up being very, very, very glad you tackled it. If they end poorly, you end up losing a lot of staff and spending years recovering from the mess that you've made. So this BPI is kind of the sweet spot. Blossom had a question. Key processes that all nonprofits should automate. The one that we hear probably most often is their onboarding process. And that, of course, has a couple of different angles on it. There's onboarding of volunteers, because most nonprofits that I've dealt with rely heavily on volunteers. How do you get them? How do you vet them? How do you keep track of them? How do you keep them happy and keep them working? It's easier when you're paying somebody to tell them what to do than when they're a volunteer and they can just say, I don't like that. So onboarding volunteers is tough. And on the flip side, and we saw this with the food bank as well as the Downtown Boise Association, you have partners that you need to be able to onboard. Those partners may be providing service to you, but they also may be partners that you're going to provide services to. And so smoothing out that process and how you keep track of the information, how you vet those folks, those are both key processes to take a look at. So next slide, Steve. some of the lenses, you guys will see why I'm going to ask you to think about this when we pop over to the demo. The lenses that you kind of look through when you're trying to choose which process you're going to tackle first. Frustration, that one is typically number one on the list. It causes pain up and down the work chain. You hear a lot about it. It just makes things not run smoothly when you've got anyone involved in the process that is frustrated by it. Time is one where if it's taking you 3 days to produce this government required report, and it's due 2 days after you have the event or do whatever the process is, time becomes a real driver of improving the process. How can I get my information quicker? How can I get it turned around and get it back out more quickly? So time is always a big driver. Cost, how much does it cost you to perform this process? And at the end of the day, is it worth doing? How can I make it better? How can I make it faster? How can I reduce the inputs that it takes to produce it? The quality, all of us are interested in quality. How can we repeat this process over and over and get the correct results every time and not have to do it over 50 times? So we hear that a lot. Customer, does this process deliver the value at the end of the day that it needs to deliver? Are our customers, be they internal or external, happy with what we've done? Do we have to apologize at the end of this process every time we perform it? So that's kind of another lens that you want to look at. So keeping those 4 or 5 criteria in mind as we transition. Next slide, Steve. We're going to pop over to a tool called Mural that we use extensively in our workshops. Steve's provided the link in the chat window. If you'll click on that, it will take you over to Mural. It's going to ask you to log in. You don't have to provide your email address. Just type your first name. It'll assign you to an animal. Click enter as visitor. If you click on the X, it'll close the instruction box. To zoom in and out, once you get over there, you can use the roller ball on your mouse, or you can use the pinch on your touch screen, however you normally will expand a screen. I've pre-populated these boxes with everyone that put their name in the chat box. I've put as much information as I had in the box that I'd like you to make your way to. Christy, I see you joined after I did that. So we'll put you in box 10. And you're making me type in public, which is never good.
And I'm going to stop sharing so we can look at Mural on Rob's screen.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, is anybody gone over there that does not have a box with their name on it?
Excuse me 1 second, Blossom, or could I have the ownership? I can't share at this point. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You need to be a co-host.
A co-host.
You now have superpowers, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, how are we doing? Has everybody made it over here yet?
It looks like we have 11 people online.
Okay. That sounds about right.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So what we're going to do today is with this demo, and I think we have about 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, maybe max. But what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to do three topics here that I'm going to ask you to brainstorm. And the first one, and this is, I also wanted to say here that we are not exactly duplicating what we do in a workshop when we're working with a group of people, because that takes about 5 hours or about 10 hours. So we're gonna shorten that a little bit. But what we are gonna focus on is gonna ask you to think about a process in your organization that might need improvement. Okay, and I'm gonna, and one of these processes is gonna involve me trying to do this correctly. I'm going to summon everybody, which will bring you, if I can do that. I'm gonna summon you. Boy, sorry, this is being a little squirrely on me. Okay, and I'm going to take control, and this is going to bring everybody to me. I will release you in just a moment. Over on the left-hand side, where it in the purple large box there, let's see, enter the name. I'm going to ask you to enter the name of a process in your organization which might need improvement. Now, usually the way we do this is we ask you to do it in 2 or 3 words. And so it might be something like onboard new volunteer, or plan an event, or purchase supplies, deliver a product, etc. And when you think about a process, generally it's much larger than a task. A process is going to involve many tasks, and it will involve many people usually as well. And oftentimes, as Steve mentioned, it's going to involve different silos or different departments within your organization, sometimes outside of your organization, that have to be coordinated and hand off from one to another in order to complete it. So it's many steps, many people to accomplish. Okay, and to do this, so what I'd like you to do is double click on the purple, and let's see, can you do this? I'm going to release you. I'm sorry, double click on the purple, and then go ahead and tell me what's one of those processes. Okay, onboarding a new member. Good. Oh, not in that one. Please put it in your own box. You'll find your name there. If you could go to the box with your name, and then double click on that purple process box, not the big one to the left, but the one that has your name on it.
And we're assuming now that you've got one window where you've been watching us in Zoom, and another tab in your browser where you're in Mural now. And right now you need to be in that Mural tab so you can type your own information in it.
Yep. We have to work on our own onboarding process here. So, okay, so we've got some of you organizing the drive, onboarding for new members. There's a strategic planning. Somebody said CRM. Could you, let's try to not use acronyms here. If you could just spell that out a little bit and think about what is one cycle through that process that you'd be referring to with CRM. Okay. And I'm going to ask anybody else who's kind of still thinking back and forth or not sure, think out loud with this for just a second. Go ahead and speak up, and maybe we can help you fashion one. Okay, good, Loki. Harley, what's your thoughts? Or Loki?
Loki can go first.
Okay.
Looks like I put her name in twice.
Oh, that's why. Oh, okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to take it off of 5 there. Okay. Erica or Kimbra?
How about in box 6? Let's hear from you guys, the Chamber's Veterans Chamber. When you say CRM, what specifically is it that you're trying to track that you struggle with?
Could you add a verb to that?
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, it won't let me click in the box anymore. It's all grayed out. So I was trying to fix it, but then it grayed out. So
Oh,
If you just
okay.
double click on it, does it come back?
it goes away. No, it won't
Oh.
happen. And then it like completely went away. So I was like, ooh. But yeah, our CRM. So we're just trying to figure out the best process for all of us.
How about this?
We're trying to figure out our workflows right now. Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Come back.
Yeah, well, I just added a box for you. So what would you like to say as for your
Just
process?
probably our customer relationship management platform process, I guess, is what we're working on right now. That's kind of our big undertaking.
Are you implementing a new CRM customer?
Well, we've had it for a while. We're just like figuring out our work process to get it so that it works for us instead of us working for it.
Oh,
I know I didn't know exactly how to word it either. So
yeah, no, that's a good. Well, that's a good one. So usually think about if you were using that customer relationship management for your work, okay, at the Idaho Veterans Chamber of Commerce. What's one of the things that you might be doing with it? Would you be sending out mailings?
oh yeah, we use it. So for our membership, it comes in that way. We use it for everything. So
Okay,
I guess
okay.
it's more that it's not like I guess it's just the big thing that we're working on right now at the chamber.
Right. That's it. That's a perfect project, but as a project, that's probably a one-time thing. And so generally we don't focus as much on streamlining or fixing a one-time process. What we do is we fix it so that every time we do some process, it will be more efficient or faster or more effective, etc. So it's what we do with that process rather than the creating of that process. Boy, that's a hard distinction to make.
Jump in here and think that she's having a hard time creating the process.
Yeah, I understand that, and this is work that we do. Actually, we could definitely we would be happy to step in and assist you with the CRM process and implementing that in a more effective, streamlined way. But here for the processes that we would be, so generally what we're going to do when we work with an organization on one or multiple processes of theirs is we're going to first identify with the organization who are all the people that are part of that process. We're going to get them together in a team, and then we'll put together an agenda to work through what are the problems with that process that normally occur, how does it currently occur, and then how can we change that? How can we improve that? What are solutions to some of those problems? And then how can we implement those? So it kind of takes it back through that. For example, onboarding new members up in number 3, every time you have a new person come in, that person, you're going to have things set up to work with that new person and get them up to speed in certain ways, to get their information recorded, to get them mentored, perhaps, etc. So there's a number of things that will have to happen, and you want that to happen to pretty smoothly, as smoothly as possible, as consistently as possible, so that once a person has come through that process, that they have completed a certain number of steps, a certain number of learnings, and they are set up to go. Okay, so that's why, because we're going to repeat that process many times. Purchasing, every time we have to purchase something, we might have to get approval for it, we might have to develop specs for it, we might have to then go ahead and purchase it, and then we have to get it delivered and make sure that the accounting for that is done correctly, etc. So we do that process a number of times as part of the lifeblood of our organization. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So with your customer management process, customer management system, that you might be looking at, there could be multiple processes that involve that CRM, such as to bring in, when you get a new contact, what are you going to go through with that new contact? There may be multiple steps, and oftentimes are multiple steps, to get that person, that new contact in and established, and hopefully involved with providing or assisting or receiving services.
Rob, how about Harley? I think he had something to talk about earlier.
Okay, Harley. Oh, good.
Well, I see that Blossom identified what I thought that the Veterans Chamber was struggling with. The Veterans Chamber didn't seem to know where to start with their CRM. So if they don't have a human system for saying, hey, when you have somebody that wants to join the Veterans Chamber of Commerce, what do you do first? Well, you enter their name, address, phone number, contact information in the CRM. What happens second? Well, if they don't know what happens first, what happens second, what happens third, and what they need to do with that as part of their business model, then that might be where they're stuck. Whereas Blossom said, hey, once I do have that into my system, it's disparate as to where we can find the information that they need. And she's talking about education. She has to vet. And I think if vet is not veteran, vet is you have to qualify which program they want to go into. Is that right, Blossom?
Mhm. Yep. Okay, good, good. So yeah, and I get that. And working through what are all the things that, if it comes down to customer relationship management, comes down to, besides putting that person's information into the system, then what are you going to do with them, with that information?
Right. And Rob, sometimes those CRM systems come kind of pre-built. And the idea is that a programmer somewhere has decided, you know, what it is you should have and how it's going to be set up by default. And sometimes the defaults in those systems ask organizations to kind of do something completely different than what they're used to doing or what might be best for them. And so it may be that the CRM system is asking them to do things one way, and meanwhile they're saying, well, we'd like to localize this to do it in a better way that's more unique to us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. That's definitely part of that. And what I would call that the implementation process of how do we take this dumb piece of programming code and how do we actually shape it into a tool that's going to help us do what we want to do, and somewhat in the way of that we want to do it. So I did that for a number of systems that we put in at the university, and Fran has done that at, you've done customer relationship management systems at multiple companies as well. So, but that's kind of that implementation process goes on so that you can do some other process. And I think what would be good is I'd like to move forward with the processes that we have, and you're welcome to kind of take all of these that are out there that you've put together so far, and let's just take them to the next couple steps so I can illustrate that. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time, and we're not going to be able to pull in the rest. And hopefully, this will make a lot more sense once we get to the rest of this. So the first is to identify the process that we've just done. And the second is the problem. And the problem is, some of you have started on the problem already, which is great. So if you could characterize in a few words, what's the problem with this process that you'd like to improve? Okay, so perhaps if you're onboarding people, you just don't have, the big problem is that you just don't have a good solid sequence of steps. And so the quality seems to be really erratic. Some people are getting trained really well, other people are not getting trained at all, hardly at all. Or if you're doing purchasing, what happens is perhaps that you're not always capturing the information that you need. And so when you have to do the year-end reports, you might have some problems because with missing information. And then that ends up taking a lot of extra time to reconcile that. Could be a lot of different things, but if you could double click on the pink box underneath your process, and we've got some good ones coming in here. So with purchasing, it's too many steps and there's no training, which probably means erupts into some inconsistency perhaps in the outcomes. Okay. And so it could be a lot of things, or it could just take forever and a day to actually purchase something instead of just getting it done so that you can move along. So that's possibility. Or let's see, Kai, you mentioned that everyone to use one location to save information and organizing that properly. So it's like saving information is your process there. And then the problem if it doesn't get saved right, there's access issues. Some people can find it, other people can't find it. You can't find it easily, spend a lot of time looking for it. Frankly, that's what I spend half of my time doing, is looking for those darn files that I put someplace that made so much sense when I put them there. Okay, great.
Sorry, I put two things in there.
Okay, I got you. Number 5, I was just on you. And I go, okay. Or Christy, the strategic planning process. So making the problem is making time with board members. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. But determine pre-work, during and post work, and how to facilitate those. Great questions. So you want, I think if we were to abstract the problem a little bit further, we might even say that there are some, perhaps those meetings are not going as well as you'd like from the standpoint of the members being satisfied, or the strategies being fully vetted and well thought through. It could be a lot of things. I'm just kind of making things up. But we'll start to see some irregularities coming up out of that. Okay, so that's kind of the problem area. And what I'd like to do is move to the principal area. And this is kind of where some of the secret sauce actually comes in. That when it comes down to onboarding, the world has probably billions of years of experience with onboarding new people. Starting with in the Neanderthal age, when we have a new rock breaker who comes along, and that person has to break the rocks correctly, and we've got to get them trained up, and we got to get them signed up. I'm thinking of the Flintstones here, actually. But so there is, how do we do that? And so a principle is kind of one general thought. So, my point was, after billions of years worth of people hours in onboarding people, people have come up with a lot of solutions, right? And those people have come up with solutions. Other people come up with general ideas about those solutions and general laws and principles. And so there's this other guy that his name is escaping me right now. But anyway, this guy has actually come up with 38 principles of looking at, kind of really abstractly, but these are basic principles to how we can organize and process more effectively. And so, for example, here's, I'm going to actually move us down here to show you this. So one of the principles is providing a single point of contact for customers and suppliers. So with the symptoms, if we have somebody calls into our organization and they get, oh, great, let me give you to this person. So now we're sending them to a different person. And then that person says, oh, actually, that's not me. We're going to send you over here. And essentially you start moving that person around, and it's hard to find where to go, where to actually help that person. That provides your organization with, it makes it very hard to show the competence that you have within your organization if you can't seem to get that person to where they need to go right away. So that's a concern. Or staff, when they get a problem, they don't know where to move that onto directly. Or if we have, let's say, I'm going to move us down to number 3, capture information once at the source and share it widely. Okay, this is a principle that in every organization I've worked in, and in every process that I've done, this principle has played a role. Because I think it's one of the most widely shared difficulties that we have. So that's what we should be doing: capturing that information once, when we have that piece of information the first time, and put it in, and it should be ready and available for everybody who needs that working on the process. So if you see symptoms like, okay, we key in the information here, and then we key it in again over there. If we have to put that same information in twice, or it starts to showing up in multiple different places at the same times, or if there are inconsistencies in it, those are symptoms that this principle is probably needed. And so we need something that will allow us to capture that once and get everybody access to the information. So these principles, and I've just taken 7 of these as some of the 7 that I see most often. And what I'd like you to do is think about is, would one of these principles here fit as potentially be relevant to the problems that you've discussed? Okay.
And we are down to about 5 minutes.
Okay, so if you could just take a moment and double click on the principle, and I don't care, put a number in, or put or kind of briefly summarize the name of that principle. Yes. Okay. So Christy, yeah, assign one person oversight. Very good. Kai, number 5, which is standardize the process. Good, good. Okay. And with that, I think I better move back to the okay. So I'm gonna move us back, because I know we are right at the end of our time here. So what we were just doing here was talking about selecting processes and goals, which is actually part of what we do with planning. When we sit down with you and identify what are the processes that need to be worked on, what are the goals for those processes. The actual redesign process, I mentioned that we have 2 workshops that we get together, the set of people who work on that process across the process. It's not everybody, but at least representative of the various jobs and tasks that are involved. And we have 2 workshops. The first one is called the As Is workshop, where we map the process and try to understand that at a quite clearly and graphically as a process, a set of steps that we go through. And we do that at a fairly good level of detail, because that in and of itself is very useful in most organizations, so that you can refer back to it. Now you have kind of you have a map to work with. But the second thing that we do with that is then we have the members identify disconnects or pain points with that. We mentioned frustration. Where is too much time take, or where is we don't know what's going to go on, or where there seems to be a lot of quality issues at this point. So that's the as-is process. Then we get together 1 to 2 weeks later for the second workshop, which is the 2B. So that's what we want to create. We identify solutions for those disconnects. We map this new process. So we have a new map that we're going to start following, and we prioritize and work out some of the implementation steps that are going to be needed for that. So there's always a number of tasks that will be needed there. Now, our organization, our process management lab, as I mentioned, we do a lot in this final phase. Once we've redesigned the process, we give you a report that kind of summarizes that and identify the priorities, etc. And you got a pretty good plan to work with. But what we found is that unless that plan gets followed up with some concrete implementation steps, they oftentimes will just tend to sit. And so we have the expertise to work with both the skills of prioritizing the changes, managing projects, assessing specific needs as a result of the new process, as well as building solutions, managing change. We have an expert in change management. We have experts in developing applications or in implementation of new systems, and leveraging the expertise of the people in your organization. How can we do that? And so we can assist you with that. And we're happy to talk. Definitely no charge. Our charges are very minor and they're secondary. The first thing is to try to help you solve your problems yourself. And then, so the mapping that I talked about, I'm going to have to move past that, but these are kind of what those maps look like. They look pretty complicated, but once you've been through them, I think they, for most people, they make a lot of sense. At the food bank, where we have done about 6 processes before, they've been able to cut their spoilage costs of their expired foods tremendously. They've decreased their receiving errors where things get lost or shunted the wrong direction so that they can't be used, decrease those by 30%, and primarily come up with much better documentation, better conceptual tools. That is, the people working these can think through. They have some tools actually to think through the problems that they encounter on the floor. A common language, new common language, and some culture shift. It's been an exciting 1.5, 2 years through the pandemic, working with them online with their people. There's some references here. We have more information about those principles, etc., and we are going to make this all available to you. And here's just a little information about how to get in touch with us. As I say, we are happy to just talk a little bit, and if we can steer you to someone who can help with an issue, or if we can help you with an issue, we're more than happy to do so. And I would like to see, are there any questions? I know,
Hop like a frog.
I think we got a good question there.
Any questions before we wrap up? If
I
not,
did
you
type
can.
in our email address
Thank you.
in the chat because that's handier than clicking on the slide, but they're also in the slide, so they'll show up later.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the team from Boise State. And thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon for our April Breakthrough Series. Once again, we do offer these monthly and they are on all different types of topics. The May session is already up. I'm so sorry. We have a little monkey behind me. The May session is up already on our website if you're interested in checking that out and registering for it. But once again, thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, we hope to hear from you all soon. And we'll be sending a follow-up email very shortly.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kai.
Thank you.